Hello, Jen here with a project for the Scrapshots design team. I grabbed these two die cutting sets from Scrapshots from Scrapaganza. Well, I was going to say a few weeks ago, but now I guess it's actually been a month ago. And I thought it would be fun to combine the two of them together. It was something that me and a couple of the other design team ladies were talking about and kind of thinking about. We like to go and look at all of the supplies and then kind of think up ideas. And I think I'm probably the novice of the group when it comes to card making and using this kind of stuff. I've always had a manual die cutting machine. I've just never really used it because I always think of it primarily for card making, and I'm trying to stop myself from doing that. I'm trying to really think about the way that I can use these elements in the projects that I enjoy doing, which is mostly scrapbooking and like mini albums and stuff like that. But also, I think I would really like to actually get back to making some cards and sending cards to people. So, we'll get there. But the two sets that I grabbed are the Spellbinders City Holiday set, which is the main set that I'm using, kind of that background set. So it's sort of this front of a house or a building, and then it has all of the elements that you can put together to give it a very wintry, Christmassy look. And I really love the sample image that they have on the front of the packaging. It's very clean and pretty, and it's in these like teals and mints, and then it has like a lime green and reds and pinks for Christmas. And then there is the second set that I decided to pair it with to turn my city holiday from Christmas into Halloween. I grabbed the Halloween TikTok dies, and those actually go to the cuckoo clock set. So Spellbinders has a cuckoo clock. The base set, I think, is to have you create like a traditional Dutch cuckoo clock. And then what they've done is they've created a bunch of add-ons so you can adjust your cuckoo clocks to change them out for every season and for all the different holidays and stuff like that. So I thought that the Halloween images were about the right size to match with this, and it might be fun to take my wintry Christmas building or house and give it a bit of a Halloween twist. So I cut all of the elements out. That took a lot of time. There are a lot of little tiny elements here. I shouldn't say it took a ton of time. If you are someone who loves making cards and this is something you do often, it probably takes no time at all. But I don't do this all that often, and so I basically just grabbed out my manual die cutting machine. I plopped myself on the floor. I grabbed a pile of cardstock in the basic colors that I thought that I would be going for. So Halloween colors, so black and a gray and a white and an orange and a purple and just a little touch of yellow. And I just literally plonked on the floor, spread myself out in the living room, popped on a good movie, and started cutting everything out. So I think if I was doing this as a Christmas card, or if I wanted to turn this into a Halloween card, I would probably do it in a couple different sessions. I would cut out all the elements that I needed for every card, just, kind of keeping track of how many of each thing I need, cut everything out, put it into little piles, and then maybe on the first day or in that first or second session, I would put all my little details together. So for the holiday card, if you were doing it sort of more in a wintry style, the elements that need to get put together are the things like there's little presents, and there are little bows that go on wreaths, and you've got like a window sill that go with the window frames and that kind of stuff. if you wanted to add snow or add a little bit of white or something like that, you could definitely do that. And anything that is wet that might need to dry, you could let it sit and dry. For the Halloween version of it, I am distressing everything because I don't want it to look nice and clean and crisp and pretty. I want everything to look tattered and eerie and creepy and distressed. So if I was making a bunch of these, I'd pull out my acrylic paint and I would distress everything. And by that, I mean, as you just saw, I took some black and some white and some silver and I smudged it across the main piece that's the building. I am adding distressing to all of the edges of everything. So the ghosts are getting a little bit of gray kind of around the edge to give them a bit of shadow and dimension. The mummy is getting distressed. The trees are getting distressed. Everything is just getting a little bit of extra to it to kind of add a little bit of texture and dimension and give the impression that everything is, old and tattered and creepy. So I would probably do all of that in one session so that everything has a chance to dry. And then once that's all dry, I could come back and stick everything down. And I definitely utilized my wet adhesive here. As you can see, it was my best friend because all of these elements are teeny tiny. If I was more of a pro, I probably would have pulled out my tweezers as well. I could see that being very helpful for a lot of people handling some of these little tiny elements and saving your fingers from getting paint all over them and glue all over them. But you know me, I usually end up getting a little messy and I get paint all over myself, and so that's just a me thing. But if you wanted to pull out your tweezers, and you are definitely more of a pro at this than I am, you're probably pulling out those tweezers because there are some teeny tiny little elements that kind of need to get stuck down. But I literally distressed everything from the back of the building to all of my little characters and even the curtains that go in each of the windows, everything. So I would probably do it that way and kind of assembly line it. But if you do it in steps, I think that putting these together could actually go quite quick. I was sort of winging it as I went here because this is my very first time putting it together. And so I was experimenting a little bit. But now that I've done it, I actually think it wouldn't take me nearly as long as it did this first time because, I picked up on all the little tips. So one thing that I really love about what I've done here is I cut my windows out of vellum so that they have a little bit of like a spooky look to them, kind of a see-through look to them rather than something solid. And I think what I would do next time when I put this together again is maybe see if I could find the right kind of color. I'm thinking like an eerie kind of blue or green to paint behind those windows so that they don't just have kind of black as a shadow behind them, but they have some sort of glowing color. I'd have to experiment to see what I have that would work, but I think that would be really fun. The other thing I think would be really fun with the windows is to make a couple of them into shaker pockets. It would definitely involve having to either cut multiple frames out so that you could build the depth that way, or fussy cutting some foam, or even cranking some foam through your die cutting machine to cut out the shape of the window frame there. There's lots of things you could do. You could use the way that the curtains hang, and that could disguise some foam. But however I would do it, I would probably experiment and figure it out in a few different ways. I think a shaker pocket would look really cool in a couple of those windows. Obviously, the larger window I think would be the easiest, but I think you could get a little more ambitious and challenge yourself to a couple of those windows. I do like that I came up with the ability to kind of, invent how I wanted those windows to look, and I added some of my little characters behind my vellum so they look like they're inside the house. On the original sample, the Christmas sample, everything is on the outside because all of the elements look super clean and crisp and beautiful and pretty. And I thought it would be fun and a little bit more kind of like eerie or haunted to have some of my little characters behind the vellum. So I added my little skeletons to the back of the vellum, or I added them down first and put the vellum over top. And then I did the same thing for one of the ghosts in that very middle window. So he kind of looks like he's in behind. And then, of course, I added the rest of the elements all in the front too. And I think too, you could make the back of the building in a bunch of different colors. The main building itself in a bunch of different colors if you wanted to do this on a layout and have like a whole cityscape and have just, different characters in all the windows. That would be really fun. There's a lot of things I think you could do now that I've put this together that would definitely change it up so that you can redo this same set over and over again, and it's always something different. Another thing that I chose to do, because for me, I was thinking, at Halloween, we're bringing in textures and things like that. Instead of doing that sachet, I'm just showing you right there what it is, which is one of the die cuts that you would cut out of paper. I decided instead of doing that, I would do it sort of more like a curtain or a banner on the outside of the window with some fabric. So I think that there's a few elements here that you could definitely switch out and not have them be paper, like the fabric. The wreaths would be another one. I thought, I went ahead and used the paper and did that. I did add some of this webbing, the webbing you get at like dollar stores and stuff that you can put outside on your trees and your bushes. I put some of that onto the wreath and a little bit on the building. So that was kind of fun. But I actually think if you had pipe cleaner or some other type of element that you wanted to make your own wreath, that would look really cool too and add some extra texture. Obviously, if it's a card, I think you want to minimize how much dimension you have because it's got to fit into an envelope and get sent. But for me, knowing that this was not going to be a card, I felt like I had a little bit of opportunity to play around with some of those textures. So the sky's the limit, really. And once I got that base down, so I had my windows down and I have the frames and the curtains and the door and everything all down, then it was really just about playing with all of the elements. So this is where the Halloween TikTok characters really kind of came in to replace the more Christmassy characters from the city holiday set. And so I've got the little ghosts. I cut out several of those so that I could kind of have them all over the building. So I've got the little ghosts. I've got there, you can see the two that I added on the outside into the windows. I just added a little bit of black into the backs of their faces. There was a die that I think you crank that through and it just sticks to the back of all of those faces so that they have something solid in behind them. But I just cut whatever, little snippets and scraps that I had to cover up those faces. I wasn't sure how they were going to sit or what I was going to do when I first originally cut them through. So, so I didn't cut that piece out, but I just used some black scrap. For the bats, I used a little bit of the yellow scraps. What else did I use? For the cat, for my little cat, I used some white. So I just used whatever I had. But there is dyes that match to all of that if you wanted to cut those out too. I have a cute little mummy here that I distressed. And kind of, he's going to be at the front door. I thought that would look really cute. I even cut out the trees. That's what I'm working with right here. I cut them out of that green because the green kind of matched the other cardstock that I used. But it was too bright. So I mucked it all up with some of my acrylic paint, and then I'm going to wrap it in some more of this webbing, and then it can kind of be trees that go on either side. And that's actually what's in the original sample. And so I kind of wanted to recreate that as well. I think definitely this is something that, depending on what you're creating, you might want to leave stuff off if you don't want to create a card that is that big. Or, you know, if you were doing this again as a layout, you could actually cut out multiple trees and build up some of the layers and maybe cut them out in different colors of green or whatever, so that you have some depth to it that way. So you can really play with some of those elements if you wanted to add them. But I cut out the two because I thought that's what's in the original sample. There is one in the window too, I think. Oh no, I'm just looking here. There isn't one in the window. But if you wanted to put a Christmas tree in that front window, you could definitely do that too. And if you were using vellum, I would put that behind the vellum. Yes, so I kind of, just played around and tried to figure out where everything fit and made sure every little window had some cute character or element that could go with it. And I just distressed things and had fun with it. So I kind of like how it turned out. And I think this would definitely be something that if you had, chipboard pieces, you could take, instead of, the ghosts and everything that I cut out, you could definitely use your chipboard, or you could use foam, or if you had any other type of element that you might have some stickers, whatever it is, or you could use an electronic die cutting machine. So if you wanted to hop onto your Cricut or your Silhouette and go ahead and find some characters that you think would work really well and cut them out that way. It is pretty teeny tiny, but I think most of our machines now, if you have ones that are even remotely new, would be able to handle the size of the elements that you're cutting out here. So you could definitely, switch things out and add elements from other places if you wanted to do this for Valentine's Day or like a fun block party. I thought that would be really cute. If you were having a block party, kind of, summer barbecue or something like that, you could definitely make this where you have like parts of the invitation in the windows, and you could have like your different neighbors kind of represented on the building or in the windows. Lots of things. And did I say it? I also thought it would be really cute if you hinged that front door and had it so that the front door could actually open, and then like my little mummy could have been in the front door, or like a vampire could be answering the front door. You could even do like a little remember when we were younger and we would just like cut a little section out of our folded paper to make a pop-up card? You could do something really simple like that, so that when the door opened, whatever character was behind it kind of popped up a little bit. There were just so many ideas that started flowing as soon as I got to work, and as I was, sticking things down, I thought, oh, it would be really cute next time if I did it this way, or if I tried it like this. So you really honestly can do a lot with it. I definitely think put it together the way it's supposed to go the first time. I think I say that a lot. Kind of get an idea and a feel for it, and then as you play and experiment, then you can start to expand the ideas of what you might want it to look like. So for me, for my plan, by this point, I was thinking this might just be a panel that I would put down on a tag or something like that in my October daily. But what I end up doing The cardstock that I'm using, that I cut things out of, you can see they're all in a circle shape. I don't know why I have those. I think someone gave it to me, but it was just a pad of cardstock, plain cardstock colors, but they're circles. And I kind of never use them. I just shuffle them around. So I needed cardstock. That's what I pulled out. And the way that I cut out the piece that I needed to fit to crank through my die cutting machine, for that main black section, the way that it was cut out, it actually ends up working out perfectly to be a bit of a hinge so that I can actually turn this into a flap in my October dailies. So I'm not going to show you that in this video, because then this video would be like 40 minutes long. So there is a part 2 that will be up today. So you'll be able to see both parts. But if you don't have time to watch them both at the same time, you can definitely come back and check that out. But that is what I end up doing, is turning this into a little hinge. And you'll totally see that, in the next video. But I kind of, as I was putting it together, I was getting all of these ideas for what I could end up doing with it and what where it might fit. And so in the end, I think I really, really love it. And I would definitely do it again for different seasons. I think you could do something where you turned this into a mini album, and, flipped through, and you could have the front of your house in the different seasons, and then, or even like monthly. And then on the other side, on the back, you could put pictures for each month. There's so many things. So yes. And then the other thing I noticed, which kind of worked really well for me, I'll just let you know quickly, the background of the windows, I cut one out in the solid gray, thinking that's what I was going to do originally. And then when I changed my mind, I just had that one piece, and I noticed that it looked a lot like a tombstone. So I added my little tombstone to my house and kind of expanded that edge a little bit with the tree and the tombstone, and then a little ghost and another jack-o'-lantern. I even have candy corn in there, which I think is just so adorable. And then bats and spiders and just tons of different elements. So I enjoyed putting this together. It was a long process for me, but it was one of those things where I could sit in front of my movie and just kind of, let my creativity go. I didn't have a preconceived notion of how it was going to turn out. And so I'm really happy with how it did turn out. And that is where I'm going to leave you for today. So please subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you so, so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Check out Scrapshots to grab these dies for yourself. And I will see you again soon. Until next time, happy scrapping. Bye.